A very good morning to each one of you sitting out here in the auditorium. We have some distinguished guests today. So the esteemed distinguished guest for today's function is Professor N.K. Janardhan Saab. He's here. He's the chairman of Goa State Research Foundation. We have our own director, the polar man, Dr. Kamal Melot. We have very senior colleagues from NCPOR, esteemed invitees from different establishments, organizations, colleges, and schools of Goa. That itself is something very enlightening for all of us. And of course, the vibrant NCPOR family and a lot of youngsters that I see around sitting on the last three benches, last three rows of the auditorium. So it's an absolute honor to welcome each one of you to the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research as we gather to celebrate the World Environment Day 2026. So I'm expecting people from about 33 organizations that will be joining us today. And this is indeed an effort from our people in the outreach who are very keen that we get people from different organizations, colleges and universities, and so that they know much more about our institution on this very important day, which is the World Environment Day. So most of you would know that we celebrated globally the 5th June because it's a time that the humanity needs to take a pause from the daily course of life that they have, and probably realize that what as humans we have done to the Mother Earth. So we look back at Earth when the Earth was born, when the humans came, and when did the industrialization happen? And then you will feel the relevance of World Environment Day much more. Because you need to realize that Earth is not the same. Forget Earth. Look at Goa. Last 35 years, it has changed drastically. So, and the world is worried about the environment because we are worried about the weather changes that are happening. The climate, therefore, is on a long-term scale, is also changing. Everybody is worried, but somewhere decisions that we take are much slower than the changes that are happening. Interestingly, June 5th is also observed as the International Day for the fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. That is called IUU. And this is something very big that most of you would not realize that how much of economic loss each country has, or maritime countries have, when it comes to fishing, when external boats come and take away the fish. And this is happening in our EZ as well. Over the last 500 years, scientists have documented about thousands specific species getting extinct, though the actual number would be much, much higher. The biologists estimate that over 99% of all organisms that ever lived on Earth are now extinct, which accounts also for the 5 major extinctions that this Earth has seen. Everyone knows here the extinction of dinosaurs. So the 1972 Stockholm Convention, or the Conference of the United Nations on Human Environment, was the first global meet to make the environment a major diplomatic priority. It established the foundation of the only one Earth motto, which in India and Vedas it is already described and written. The Earth is one. We demarcated which geographical one. So it's important to take a pause from our daily lives. Look at the pressing environmental issues that threaten our global home, that is Earth. From what all? From degradation, habitat degradation, which includes in Goa the mangroves getting lost. We are introducing pollution, and you are seeing it in mussels and fish that is on the plate. There are cross-cutting challenges in climate change. No one discipline can solve it. Therefore, it reminds us that environment is not an isolated scientific problem. It is a shared human obligation. और इसके लिए हम सबको मिलके काम करना है. आज आप आए और शायद आज के बाद भूलना नहीं कि वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट डे फिर जून को ही नहीं मनाना. शायद के प्रयास है जो आपको रोज करना होगा. अगर अर्थ हमारी धरती, जिसको धरती माँ भी बोलते हैं, उसको अगर बचाना है. So somebody yesterday asked a question late evening, why are we celebrating it in NCPOR? A very strange question coming from one of the persons at NCPOR, and I took a pause to answer. So the NCPOR is the best place to celebrate World Environment Day was my first answer. Because scientists and researchers at NCPOR look at environment and the world differently. They look at the cryospheric, the poles, the oceans, the Pacific oceans, because we realize that what happens in remote frozen expanses of the Arctic, the majestic wilderness of the Antarctic, and the vast depths of the oceans, especially the polar oceans, and the Southern Indian Ocean, dictates the weather, the climate, and overall the environmental stability of the planet. And therefore, it's imperative that we celebrate in a big way. So I always feel that NCPOR's institutional mandate is metabolically linked to the world environment day. So when we study cryosphere or we study ice, we are perhaps deciphering the pulse of the planet Earth. We are monitoring the changing biota in the oceans. We are deciphering the delicate mechanisms of the survival, the carbon capture, and whatnot is being done here. I hope that you all agree that the world is a connected place. And needless to say that vagaries of weather and climate don't see the boundaries. So our focus today revolves around understanding and preserving these global gatekeepers, perhaps that's the right word used from my side. And therefore today's celebration is both an acknowledgement of our scientific responsibility and call for an action. Over the course of today's event, we'll engage with you, share insights, and reinforce our commitments for safeguarding these pristine environments. So we have two important talks by eminent speakers. Professor Janardhanam is here, and Professor Pant, a veteran Antarctican, will join us online. And then we have our own polar man, our director, Aman Nagar. So once again, a very warm welcome to our esteemed guests, the invitees, everyone present here. A big thank you for your dedication and understanding of preserving this blue planet. And I hope that you have a wonderful time ahead in the World Environment Day. So let's now see a small film, very short film, which has been developed in a few hours by our video own Rakesh. And I hope that you enjoy this film. So please show the film.
A world unlike any other we know. For more than 4 billion years, the forces of nature have shaped a living masterpiece, a planet of extraordinary diversity and beauty. From ancient forests that stretch beyond the horizon, to winding rivers, vast deserts, vibrant wetlands, and the endless blue of the oceans. Earth is a living mosaic of extraordinary diversity. Millions of species call this planet home. From microscopic organisms hidden from view to the great whales that roam the oceans. Each plays a part in the intricate web of life, a network of connections that sustains the natural world and ultimately ourselves. Our well-being and our future are bound to the health of the living systems that surround us. Yet today, this delicate balance is being tested. Across the globe, ecosystems are changing at a pace rarely seen before. The oceans are warming, weather patterns are becoming less predictable. Habitats are shrinking, increasing pressure on countless species. And for the first time in human history, our actions are reshaping the very systems that govern life on Earth. These warning signs are becoming impossible to ignore, especially at the Earth's icy poles, the polar regions. Vast, frozen realms that may seem distant and remote, yet they are deeply connected to life everywhere on Earth. Their snow and ice reflect sunlight back into space, regulating the planet's temperature. Their oceans drive powerful currents that influence weather systems across continents. And within these icy landscapes thrives an extraordinary array of life, uniquely adapted to some of the harshest conditions on Earth. But today, the poles are changing. warming faster than many other regions of the world. As ice retreats and oceans transform, these effects are felt far beyond the Arctic and Antarctica. Understanding these changes has never been more important. From the frozen expanses of the polar regions to the vast oceans that connect our world, NCPOR works to deepen our understanding of Earth's changing environment. Through scientific research, long-term monitoring and observations helps reveal the processes shaping our climate, oceans, and ecosystems. Knowledge that is essential for protecting our shared future. This World Environment Day, let's celebrate the remarkable planet we call home, its rich biodiversity, its extraordinary ecosystems, and the science that helps us understand and safeguard them. Because every species has a role, every ecosystem has value, and every action we take today helps shape the better world for tomorrow.
That means a big cover. So I now request, we have the honor of welcoming the chief guest, Professor Janardhanam and Professor NC Pant online. And I request Dr. Pamban Mello to please. So the best thing we can do today is to welcome our chief guest with something that is caring for the earth, and that's the plant. So I request Dr. Pamban, the director of the institute, to give a plan on this occasion and welcome the chief guest of today's function, Professor. And probably I'll do the honors of welcoming our own director, Dr. Pamban. So these are calatheas, so you should take care of them. You don't require much water, but some water. So it's now my privilege to request Director Dr. Pamban Mello to address the gathering and tell the gathering about NCPOR and its role in the polar regions.
Good morning and a very happy World Environment Day. Distinguished Chief Guest of the day, Professor Janardhanam, the Chairman of the Goa State Research Foundation, as well as our friend, in fact, Goa University earlier. The distinguished guests from the various institutions within Goa, colleges, schools, and educational institutions, and various other institutions. My own colleagues from NCPOR and friends, and young. I can also see a lot of young people on the back. So welcome to this day at NCPOR on this World Environment Day. So I just want to basically just imagine that when we celebrate this World Environment Day, we also want to talk about the regions which looks to be very remote from where you sit now. Where we are more worried about the rains and the sun and the ocean nearby, rather than thinking about ice and being cold, because we wish that those days that we get transported to those places when it is so sweltering heat in the month of May. But what I just wanted to also say, state that this juncture is that Those places are not just frozen land sitting over the forest to watch their beauty, but they are the ones which actually are driving our planet, driving our systems, and ensuring that the life on this earth, this planet is worth living. So, for example, when you look at the map of the whole world, it looks like these Antarctic and Arctic seems to be looking like on the edges of this the planet. What we call one is on the top and one would be at the bottom. But basically, they are the central to our world, our climate, our ecosystem, and our own economy. Because therefore, the story of the planet itself or the polar regions itself is in some ways the story of humanity's future. Because the future of our Earth will basically have a lot to depend on what happens over there. Because these frozen landscapes decides on the ocean system, whether it's ocean currents or climate, whether it's our economies or the ecosystems or the food we want to eat, because all this depends along as an interconnected world of this climate and environment, which ultimately decides how we will be able to sustain in this world. So therefore, first and foremost, what I just wanted to say that the polar regions are critical regulators of the climate system itself. Because the whether you see what you see in the atmosphere or what you see in the ocean, all these currents and the systems are essentially driven from what happens in large places like Antarctic or even for that Antarctic. Because they are the places where it's the largest, the feedback of this climate system happens because of the huge reflection of most of the sunlight, the solar radiation, what happens to weather, which ultimately decides how the atmospheric and ocean circulation systems are created. So what we also find is that these systems are rapidly changing, as many of you keep reading it. Where this Arctic ice, which is Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than higher than the global average. In some places of the Arctic, it's even 7 times higher than what is global average. We already feel that the tremendous increase in the heat waves over the years, especially those people who are lived long enough, they know that actually from the childhood to what we see today, this is a significant changes during the every seasons. Summers are hotter and there are much more heat waves than what we in fact, the heat waves are something which was not even heard in at least in the southern part of India and in the past, Europe for that matter. Over year after year, you find heat waves are touching almost all parts of the world, unlike what used to be. Cold waves during the winter, so winter times are getting colder and there's much more drier. And the rainy seasons or the monsoons are becoming much more flash floods rather than the distributed rainfall which you used to normally get it. So all these have a significant impact on the environment and the ecosystem. So this consequences, therefore, what happens in the poles does not remain there. So what happens to Arctic or Antarctic travel across the world, and it impacts our day-to-day life, whether in terms of our climate, whether in terms of our infrastructure. For example, you look at the place like Himalayan regions, the infrastructure is crumbling mainly because there is a significant changes happening to the landscape in terms of the frozen lands are becoming much more vulnerable, and there's a lot of landslides over the years. So which leads to a substantial increase in various environmental disasters, including the glacial lake outbursts, floods, and the rainfall, rain over snow, and rain over ice, and so many of those things happening over there. And and places like even the coastal India is also not better than that. So all this will have a significant impact because the healthy oceans are the healthy planet is crucial for our food safety as we look forward to the future. Because also the vast amounts of what is called the carbon dioxide, for example, which has actually been absorbed by the ocean, of which mostly nearly 70% of them absorbed by the southern ocean. As it's getting warmer and warmer, its ability to absorb more, or it in fact get released more to the atmosphere, this is going to significantly impact the challenges we already facing. Therefore, the protecting the poles means protecting our planet. Thirdly, we also want to know that the polar regions also are the natural laboratories as well as the climate repositories. If you go around in NCPOR itself, you will find some of the laboratories which we are able to study the much longer history of the Earth, which enabled us to understand that what we see today are not a natural change what happens to our system like happened in the geological past, but it is due to the human interventions over the last several decades or even less than 100 years. Because what we see, if anybody studied geology would know that actually during the geological past there have been major changes, but all those changes used to happen within several thousands of years, within 10,000 years. But what happens to us, what happens within a decade or maybe a multi-decades, few decades. That is directly what is coming from the human. These kind of records, what we see in the ice and these bubbles of the ice in the ancient air, which is saved within tells us the story that what happens today is directly the result of what we do on this planet. Therefore, this kind of Antarctica is the only one place where you can get such records, the longest available and as well as the best available, best preserved records of the global climate systems. So therefore, the Antarctica provides us a natural laboratory as well as a natural repository of the environmental changes as well as the climate changes. So these archives will ultimately help us to understand it better. Once you understand, I think that's why a lot of the feedback is going to policy documents like whether it's IPCC and Paris Agreement and so on. All this is now very well understood. But then action is something which every political governments have their own priorities at that time, which is what delaying it. And on fourth, I also want to say that the polar regions are frontiers of a lot of scientific discovery what we see, whether the Montreal Protocol which came into existence because of the finding of the ozone hole way back in 1985, or whether the life in extremes which has found to be a utility in terms of various our day-to-day life, whether it's in biology or geology or atmospheric science and climate science, all that is basically most important findings have come from the polar regions, especially Antarctica. Because some of these very unique organisms, what we call psychrophiles, and some of these extreme minute organisms, what you see in those extreme places have their own purpose in application in our day-to-day life, and especially biotechnology, medicine, and environmental monitoring, and even some of the space exploration. Because most of the space analogies actually what you find is are in Antarctica. So many of these technologies, as we also coming on developing, also has come with an experience in Antarctica, which led to many of those findings. Therefore, investing in polar science is just therefore not investing in knowledge, but is investing in our future and our future economy. On fifth, the polar regions also remind us the importance of the international cooperations. Antarctica is the only place where everyone collaborates, because it is what works under the Antarctic Treaty System, where the treaty is meant for only scientific and peaceful purposes. So unlike any part of the world where this geographical and political boundaries are creating so much of hazards, Antarctica is one place where this does not come into existence. Because at the time when we are also seeing so much of geopolitical challenges, wars going on around us, it's creating our day-to-day life so miserable. Antarctica is again such an example how a global agreement can be reached even at the height of a Cold War, which has ensured that at least one piece of the Earth is exclusively kept for a peaceful purpose as well as scientific research. Therefore, protecting these places, the Antarctica becomes so important through collective actions, especially in environmental stewardship. Because as we can see around the huge loss of biodiversity across the globe, there is a strong, one of the biggest theme of even World Environment Day is actually is for the increasing the marine protected areas across the globe, because there is a huge habitat loss happening. Some of them even happening due to the natural changes, because most of them, the vast majority of them happens because of the overfishing or the over exploitation, or as well as the activities of human beings. So for countries like India, for example, polar regions are of an exceptional importance because of the kind of the economy which depends on the climate system, which is the monsoons. The vast majority of monsoon is, as you must have seen, this year is going to be an El Nino year. So, what happens in the Pacific, somewhere in very far away from here, it actually influences the our climate. Another most important thing, which actually has been not very well studied, actually, what happens in the Arctic and Antarctic, also have a very significant influence on the Indian monsoon rainfalls, its extent or its strength, and the seasonality, etc. Therefore, it's important for India, and again, look at as the climate change in water resources. Water is something which is we are really facing a huge shortage, and the water, the 70% of the global fresh water is still frozen in the coast. They will again will have our own reason actually why it will be influencing our future. And no need to tell, the sea level rise, what we see in a small way now is increasing year after year. And in the coming decades, by 2100 and so, this will be significant increase in sea level rise due to Antarctica ice melt as well as the Greenland ice melt. So this is something will impact our coast, because most of the we have a huge coast now. It's even calculated to be more than 11,000 kilometers, which is from the earlier record. So which means actually there is a huge vulnerable population sitting in the coast, which we can already see in places like in the southern southwest coast of India. Some of the states have a serious what we call the coastal erosion happening, and especially impacting during the monsoon time, because as the sea level slightly increases, the storm surges increases, and the storm surges are along with the normal weather system can low-lying area can create havoc. So the choice which we make today will make the climate action as well as the environmental action will ensure that we have this stewardship to take forward the planet forward, make the scientific investment so that we are better understand the system before we are able to take better action. So it is not just the challenge between us is not just to look after the polar regions, but to recognize the central importance global planet environment system as well as ecosystem. So if you look at this particular institution, which many of you must be only coming to more recently, which is that we also call very young people, because we have just celebrated our silver jubilee. But over the last decades, 2 decades, we have created enough actual research as well as the importance of the research what we do to the public at large. A lot of people realize actually what are that we are doing it, why are we doing it, and what for we are doing it, and how does we do it. So if you look at the entire this institution major activities, one of the major activities itself is to ensure that we are provide a strong operational and logistical backbone of the entire Indian activities in Antarctic and Arctic, especially in Antarctica. Because that's every scientific activity in Antarctica is decided by the operational preparedness as well as the logistical abilities. So therefore, we have stations in Antarctica, which we started way back in Antarctic expedition way back in 1981. At that time, it was more as a policy decision, but thereafter soon it will become actually more of a scientific research, which required research stations. We started in 1983 as a Dakshin station, very small, in a smaller way. Then we shifted to a much larger station, 1989, called Maitri. Maitri is still existing, and we have a very relatively new station, much more modern station. We call as Bharati. So all each of the stations are, unlike what we think, they are like, running one small mini cruise ships. So the enormous, the logistic as well as operational activities associated with requires a 24 hours, 7 days, activities at an NCPOR, monitoring as well as supporting. So everything what we do in Antarctica also need to be safe and secure. So because when we send people as well as material to Antarctica, it is also our job to ensure they are safely they come back and they are able to carry out the research science what they want to do it. All those things what we what you see in those newspapers are ultimately decided as well as protected as well as supported from NCPOR. Second, we also are the scientific gateway to the ecologies. Science is the most important central part of the Antarctic activity research itself, or the Antarctic treaty as well as the Antarctic system itself, because science is the most important here. And the scientific research which you can carry out in Antarctica, many of them cannot be carried out the rest of the world. So that justifies why you want to be in Antarctica. So one of the most important findings what we see in the globally, what we see today come from Antarctica. Therefore, this institute, other than supporting or being an ordinary agency for this polar research, for our scientific activities, we also provide carry out the actual research in some of the niche areas of important natural sciences, and that will that generate a lot of knowledge, and which we also communicate with the rest of the world. We also strengthen India's scientific and diplomatic engagement, because most of the what happens in Antarctica has also a lot of geopolitical as well as other importance. Therefore, it is important to be have a strategic engagement to the Antarctic treaty systems. So NCPOR does that, whether in terms of the Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, or whether it's the Committee on Managers for Antarctic Programs, or whether it's the International Arctic Science Council, and so on. So many of these forums which are basically led by NCPOR here. Finally, it's also builds its national capacity and polar ocean studies and outreach, because we are the very fundamental, most of the important research carried out being carried out in NCPOR, ensures that we have a basic understanding of what happens to most places, which are further able to inform the Indian people, which will understand why do we do such research, and some of them also generate skills over the years which will have beneficial in other areas. And some of the, for example, we just want to excel in science, but we also ensure that actually this what we learn are communicated to the colleges, schools, and universities, and the public at large, which ensures that the kind of the investment we make on those places are worth of doing it, and because the ultimately public money we utilize. So in conclusion, we carry out not only just operational and scientific research, but we also ensure that actually what we know is also communicated to the whole globe. So thank you so much for this World Environment Day, and thank you for joining us, and thank you all of each one of you for coming. And this is an opportunity to also understand what we do. Therefore, please go around the campus. Today, weather is relatively okay, so we should be able to just move around the campus and see the laboratories and meet our people, so that you also, some of you also will be coming from colleges and universities. Will also be beneficial to have this collaboration and interaction with our scientists, which will, some of you may become future scientists. Therefore, it's very important that you use these opportunities very well. Thank you so much, and happy World Environment.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Thompson, for taking us to the poles and informing us the importance of polar regions, weather and climate of this earth. Now it's my privilege to introduce today's chief guest, Professor M.K. Janardhanan, who will be giving the next talk on environment and sustainability. Professor M.K. Janardhanan is a distinguished botanist and academic leader who post his academic journey at Goa University, where he served as full professor, senior professor, dean, and also for a few days he was informing me about, he was the acting vice chancellor of Goa University and is now the chairman of the Goa State Research Foundation. Goa State Research Foundation came up in 2022, but it was only pushed in 2023 when he joined in January of 2023. And under his able chairmanship, Goa State Research Foundation have funded research projects for young bright projects, young students, researchers, postdocs, and among many other activities, they also do. They are establishing a scientific ecosystem in Goa, where they also conduct summer schools for the UG students. And in fact, I was reading one of the reports of Herald where they said that the beneficiaries from Goa State Research Foundations are about 242 and about amounting to about more than 13 crores. So this speaks volumes about Professor Janardhanam and how he is pushing the research ecosystem in the Goan community. And that's very, very important. He loves this area of plant taxonomy, and that is what we were discussing today morning, that somehow he feels alienated from the science that he was doing. He has an extensive research portfolio, and he has had a lot of all India coordinated scientific projects on sacred grove ecosystem services assessment for the state of Goa, which was funded by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate. His foundational work in the systematics of angiosperms and the endemic flora of Western Ghats, I came to know in Port Blair through Dr. Sanjappa, who was early director of BSI, and which has earned him a lot of international recognition. In fact, two of the unique plant species are named after him. The carnivorous bladderwort is one of them, and other is the rare moraine grass. So, apart from that, of course, he is awarded, rewarded, and he has a lot of publications to his credit. A wonderful human being. Through Dr. Tamar has already informed you that we were connected when he was there at Goa University, and he came close to us. And it's always a pleasure to meet such a humble and very simple scientist like Professor Janardhanam. So now, without wasting any further time, let's now listen to Professor Janardhanam on environment and sustainability.
Thank you. Good morning. I wish you a meaningful Environment Day. Normally, we don't know whether to wish us happy Environment Day because environment is not so happy. Dr. Tamar Nagot, Dr. Rahul Mohan, Dr. Avinash, all the senior scientists here, staff, students, invitees, public, teachers, whoever is here, warm welcome to you. First, let me thank the director of NCPOR and our friend Dr. Tamar Nagot for giving me this opportunity to address. Though I was told that officers from different departments will be coming, I was also thinking that somehow students also will be there. So, on Environment Day, the environment itself is a very multi-pronged thing. When addressing students or officers from different departments, when hardcore scientists are sitting here, is an arduous task, I am aware. So now I imagine that there are no scientists sitting here. So let me go to my presentation. So when we basically, though I titled it as ecology, environment, and sustainability, I'm going to show certain connections and ask certain questions, give some facts, though not necessarily with the figures, because sometimes figures are not so good. Because after some numbers, any number comes, it doesn't make any difference to us. Next one, please. Yeah, can you change the slide? No. Yeah. So this year's theme is inspired by nature for climate, for our future. Basically, they put it as climate action. So we start from there. Next one, please. We will start with some history because history has got a lot of things to give us. We look at this map, we look at where our civilizations were existing, maybe 8,000 years ago to almost 3,500 years, 500 years ago. And all these civilizations have disappeared. Most of the publications which are coming today point out one major reason, that is climate change. So climate change is not new, it has been happening. But only thing now, the present climate is happening so rapidly. Rahul Mohan was also mentioning 5 extinctions have happened. Now we are on the cusp of 6th extinction, purely driven by human beings. Though climate change is also happening on its own, apart from what we are creating. And this is basically attributed to this melancholic cycle. Of course, a lot of geologists are here. I'm not going into these details. Where peak tilt has happened around 8,700 BC, where it was 24.23 degrees. As the axis changes, the climate also changes. Indus Valley civilization, which was very prosperous, has almost become desert. Mesopotamian, Sumerian civilization, which has become a desert. Okay, so these things are going to happen. Whatever was there are not there today. Whatever is there today may not be there tomorrow. Whether this cycle will repeat again, they will prosper. It is in our hands today. That's what we are going to discuss. Next one. That is one example. Another example is this. There is one Easter Island. Of course, most of you must have read about it. This has been because of this book, Jared Diamond's Collapse. It has caught a lot of people's attention. Though his arguments are contested. This island, which is there in the Pacific, people settled around 12,000 AD. And there was a lot of vegetation there, trees were there. Later on, all the trees have disappeared, but they have a pond for these kind of statues, which are moais, they call. And the argument is this, why I am talking about this? Because the human made, they call it as ecocide. Okay, disaster, according to Jared Diamond, but others are not agreeing. There are different, this one. These people actually started bringing the statues from one end of the island where those rocks are available by cutting the trees and rolling them on them. Otherwise, they cannot bring such heavy things. So he says that was one of the major reasons why all the trees have been cut. The ecological disaster has happened, which has led to so many spiraling things. But some other argument is that there was one Polynesian rat which has also migrated. It started feeding on all the seeds and also they could not germinate. That is another story. Whatever it is. Okay. Now it is a UNESCO heritage site. That's okay. So we have seen 2 examples. One is natural climate change, which has finished off the civilization. Another one is whatever be the reason, the human-made ecological disaster, which has brought down the number of inhabitants there to just little more than 100. Of course, now it is possible. That's a different story. So these are two. The question can be asked how these people have gone there, the closest to another island where human beings are residing are about little more than 2,000 kilometers. The mainland is 3,500 kilometers, that is Chile, under which it is coming. These are certain questions we will keep in the background and proceed further. Next one, please. So, in this discussion, we will focus on this the sustainable development goals. There are 70. I am not going to deal with everyone, but just my purpose is to show that all of them are connected to each other, how they are connected. And when I was listening to both Dr. Rahul Mohan and Dr. Thamman, the director, many times the politics word has come. It has got a lot of meaning to us. Probably we will try to connect that too. Next one, please. And just before reading that, you look at that GDP, whatever the way they have calculated, let us take it as true. You look at the first century AD, the blue one, the basic, the base one, that is of India, about 32 to 33% of GDP in the world was held by India. Slowly it has come down. And you see, US was nowhere, only after 1820s and on. It started, its GDP started increasing. It tells a lot of stories. It tells a lot of geopolitical stories, which we may have to connect wherever. Not that I'm going to explicitly talk about it, but we do need to connect them. Okay, next one, please. And among the 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, as proposed by UN in 2015, which they are supposed to reach by 2030. Almost all the countries are signatories to this. And look at the extreme poverty by country. And just, you may not go by the names. You look at where they are. Mostly, these are the countries which are either in Africa. Of course, one or two are in Asia. Some are in South America. Basically, you see that they are not lacking natural wealth. Maybe they may be trying in few areas, but mostly they have been swindled. Like our country, I will come to that slide a little bit later. Even prosperous countries can undergo poverty, because how do you manage your resources are very, very important. That is the lesson we have to take here. And this one connects to almost all other SDGs. When we say poverty, poverty is connected to everything else: hunger, health, education, industrialization, biodiversity. Okay, especially life below water, life on land. Everything is connected to this particular thing. Though, because of mismanagement, having good biodiversity alone will not give back to you. Okay, so this is next one. Next one, please. You look at the global hunger index. You look at the countries. You look at our country. It is very serious. Okay, whatever be the index, let us not bother about it. But some countries are in a gray. What is that gray? Not included or not designated. Why are these countries are not included or not designated? I leave it to you, because I said everything also need to be connected to geopolitics in this world. This was done by an NGO, non-governmental organization based in Germany. And which are the countries? You can see US, Canada, European countries, Australia, Japan. You can make out some kind of, to which caucus they belong to. Is it intentional? Data was not available, but we don't believe, because if data is available for all other countries, you don't believe that it is not available for that. What it says is that sometimes the narratives are being built. I would like to be little political here, which we need not trust. But it is also true that there is another index, not necessarily the way it has been portrayed. Next one, please. Look at good health and well-being. It's the right one, those bars will tell you a lot about it. You ask where good health benefits are available without looking at this. You ask anyone, probably without even knowing, people will say maybe US. US is not there in the top. Now, if you see it is Saudi Arabia, UAE, and somewhere down, United States, that's of course little below India comes. And people say that we don't have health benefits, whatever it is, but how people have responded is entirely different. Those who lived in USA will know that how difficult it is. Most of your, at least 25% of your earnings will go for your insurance. Otherwise, there is no treatment. Why I am connecting all these things? Health need not be always connected to GDP. That is one. Health can be connected to good, ecology and environment. These are the points which I would like to introduce here. Next one, please. Clean water and sanitation being Environment Day. This is, of course, there are worse photographs than this to pick up, but I thought it will be too nauseating to show it in public, so I just picked it up. Who is responsible for this? The UN says that it has given the 17 SDGs. Countries have signed. And who is supposed to take care of this? Is it only the governments? Who is throwing these bottles? Who is throwing these whatever gummy snacks, their bags? Who are throwing it? That is the question which I have asked at the end. Okay. Whose responsibility is this? If we say Environment Day, we all say that, oh my God, how environment is going, how it is degrading. Of course, governments are also responsible. They give permissions. They give what they don't give permission also we do. This is what every citizen does almost. Okay, throwing away. So we need to little bit, go ask ourselves, ask these questions. Okay, how long we would say that we have to save our ecology and environment without doing anything. Not that I'm not talking about this closed audience, but most of us are very aware of it. We may not be doing it, we will not be doing it. But generally, who is doing it? Why are they doing it? Okay, these are the questions. And with this, water is so important. Clean water, sanitation, then this is linked to our health, and this is linked to the biological organisms which are surviving there. So every SDG is linked to the other. Everything is linked to the ecology and the environment. Next one, please. Next slide, please. So governments are doing their level best. For example, our Jal Jeevan mission. After introducing this, you see how the tap connections have progressed. This is a great thing. We have to celebrate this. But at the same time, the moment we go for this kind of facilities, whatever our conventional wisdom was there, we had wells, public wells, private wells, we had ponds around the villages, we had lakes. We started neglecting them because water started coming to it, and that is where we go on down. Okay, we need to have some kind of brainstorming. What we are doing, whether we have to neglect certain things. For example, all of us have smartphone now. We don't need the button phones anymore. That's okay. But these kind of natural resources are we supposed to neglect? Again, I'm coming to geopolitics. If you look at the Iran war, whether to call it as the war or something else, atrocity, I don't know. But whatever is going on there, people started hitting, especially those being water deficient areas, the water facility, no? The, what is that, salination, desalination units. It's so important, okay? That means what was available naturally in plenty, because of our mismanagement, we started depending on the tap connections. Tomorrow, if something happens, whatever happens, for example, very often we come across this, suddenly pipe broke down. For next 3 days, there is no water for Vasco. We hear this. Why can't we actually go for the decentralized kind of systems? This we have to think, especially at least on this day. Not that centralized one is very cheaper and all, that is one thing. When it is available on this here, if you are getting 3,000 minimum of rain in a year, why we have to bring water from elsewhere? Why can't we have our own decentralized system? That is the question. Next one, please. Oh, I directly going to life below water and life on land. Of course, we have all studied in school ecosystems. Okay, I'm going to basic. Please don't bother about that, because that's very, very important. Many times, what happens, we go to such a high level, we forget the fundamentals. Okay, what is this fundamental? There are two components, biotic and abiotic components. Both are serving each other. Especially abiotic is the one which drives the biotic. And this abiotic, we are influenced, what we call environment, whether it is climate, whether it is water, whatever it is, whether it is the soil, whether it is the pollution, chemical, whatever. We are the one who is influenced. And we expect that should not influence the biotic components, and that should not influence the ecosystem. Okay, the fundamentals are wrong. So, if at all, we have to protect the human species first. If you protect it, and if you make some sense, bring some sense in it, then all other things will be protected. We need to take care of this particular thing. And we have food chains and food webs. Of course, nature has got it. It has not just food chains. These chains are connected, interlinked like a fish network. So what we call as food web. So that even like our road, for example, Vasco, one road they are digging, they will, traffic will be diverted via something else. Same thing in nature. They don't rely just on chains. One road, if it is cut, it should flow through something else. It's very, very fundamental. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to cut almost the whole web in several places, knowingly or unknowingly. And that's very important. So this is very, very, ecosystems have to be protected. When we say ecosystems have to be protected, we have to protect both biotic and more importantly, abiotic components, because they are the ones which decide biotic. Why I am telling this? You see anywhere, I'm going to show certain things. Wherever abiotic things change, if you say that there are 100 species in that area, ecosystem, ultimately it will come to 50. Because everything else, this balance, imbalance will eliminate all other species which can tolerate those abiotic changes, only they will survive. That is very important. That is why when we talk about ecology or welfare, we have to talk about environment, the environmental factors. Next one, please. And this is life on land. Species are silently becoming extinct at an alarming rate. Of course, our friends have already said, whatever species have ever lived on Earth, only 1% are living today. That's a natural process. Extinction has been happening, it will happen. But the problem now is this extinction is happening in a very, very rapid rate. That's one. Two, that is happening because of one species, which is actually disturbing all other parameters. So that is the second part. Okay. Now look at these are the 2025 reports on SDG goals. I just brought it intentionally here. You see how much land is protected. 17.6% of land is now protected. And our goal is to protect 30% of the land. What does it mean? Okay. The moment we say, you see, we have protected 70% or 30%, what it means is also this, that we have not protected remaining 70%. That means you do whatever you want with the remaining 70%. That automatically gives. Actually, I love to tell one small story here. You know, Bernard Shaw, he was addressing the audience like this. Of course, it is his. Don't get offended or anything. He addressed the audience. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I must say that 50% of this audience are stupid. People got really agitated and they protested. Mr. Shaw, please take back your statement. We don't agree with this. And he said, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize. I take back my words. Ladies and gentlemen, let me confess that 50% of you are very wise. The meaning is, you understand, no? When we say we are going to protect 30%, earlier 100% protection was there everywhere before industrialization. That was the one which was sustaining. See, we have to, not that, okay, we leave it like that without any protection, that is also wrong. But I am talking about the meaning of the hidden behind this. You must have, I also see a lot of statements these days coming, we are going to protect this, we are going to protect this, means what? Other things are not protected. You should keep this in mind. So, the 70% of the land, even if you achieve this 30% by 2030, is not protected. That's open. That means we are sure to destroy, degrade, whatever it is, that particular thing, if it is not already done. Okay. Fine. That means our population is increasing, needs are increasing, the land protected is decreasing. Then how do you protect the environment, ecology, and how this ecology will protect? We expect you to protect. Okay, these are the questions. Okay. Next one, please. Here, since I know most of us are here from Goa, I thought I will show a few examples. You know, that is the plateau immediately after the rain. In summer, if you go, it is God-forsaken, barren land, nothing will be there. And this is where all our, of course, including NCPOR, Goa University, Porvory, Township, Industrial Estate, everything have come on this plateau. And what is there on this plateau? And what is the importance of this plateau? Of course, this is a lateritic rocks. It acts like a sponge. It absorbs whatever rain comes and it slowly releases. All our zones, springs in Goa are around these plateaus wherever you go. Most of them are dried up because we are concretizing the okay. And you look at these plateaus during rainy season, they are amazing. Okay, they have amazing diversity. Actually, the number of species, if you take plants, they are more than the species that are existing in not similar area, 10 times more area of the forest, species-wise. Only thing they may not be having only tree cover to show that it is a forest. More trees, more endemic species. Most of them are restricted only to this plateau. You understand? So we have to have this awareness. Next one, please. This is Dipkadi goins, that the right species, one of the species described by us from Rivona. It was there only in a small area. Now we have also found it out in Betul, close to ONGC, where a lot of houses are coming, institutions are coming, something else is coming. There is no other place on the earth where it is living. Okay. So what? If one species is gone, we will lose everything. That is the link. You must be having scooter, bike, car. One screw goes somewhere loose, then you know what happens. You cannot run it. You have to take it to the workshop. Same thing happens in nature, right? Just because one species goes, because that is the link. That is connecting something. Fortunately, though, it's a web, there are so many other routes, but they are playing some important role, ecological role in that particular ecosystem. We can't underestimate them. Next one, please. This will be very interesting, of course. Antarctic and all Salvas terrain. This is one species which Professor Yadav and myself, we have described in 1994. As I said, 99% of the species have become extinct, only 1% is there. Within that 1%, among the flowering plants, this is the one of the second basal-most species. It is here, all its relatives are in Australia. And this shows that there was a continental connect. Okay, now the drift we are talking about, where at one stage, where India, Australia, Antarctica, Africa, everything was together. Of course, they started separating almost, correct me, geologists, please, maybe 150 million years ago, though they were connecting and coming out from the maps. So it's very interesting, and I should also tell this story. We found it in Maharashtra. Then we also saw it in Goa University campus in one small spot. I was not telling anyone because otherwise the people will destroy that. That was on got for second place in the campus. One fine day, Monday morning, I went there. They have already put some soil there, leveled it for something else. This species of only this size. A small patch. The connection structure. Of course, it is there everywhere, elsewhere. So I did not go there. What I'm telling, unless we study, we do some scientific study, we establish a connection. We always read, continental drift, this where Gondwana land was there, and all those kind of things. These are the living examples which are available in Goa. Now it is not there. We have to go to Maharashtra to look at it. Next one, please. And we always see when we talk about impact, we said clean water, sanitation, all those kind of things. Almost all of us must be taking tea or coffee in the morning. Most of us must be taking tea. And it used to be pristine forest. You go to Monarch or any other area, Nilgiris, pristine forest. They have been destroyed for economic purpose. That is very important. The economy cannot be taken away from this. They have become like this. They were the land of elephants. Now they come. People working there had to run around because of the elephants. And of course, a lot of stories are there to tell. But you look at this is more important. People spraying this one. And I don't know how many of you have entered into tea estates. The floor will be almost like a concrete. Though it is mud, it's very hard. Water will not propel it. Because tea should not have more water. They are always in the slopes. Water should run off. And all these chemicals, pesticides, whatever they are putting, of course, after putting whatever leaves come, which they take, they go abroad. Whatever were already exposed to pesticides, probably they are rolled, fermented, and made into fine super dust, tea, or whatever it is, it comes to us. So please be aware of that. I also drink a lot of tea. You know where it is. And whatever was there falling on this one, washed off, they go to nalas, from nalas to rivers, rivers to dams. Then that is what we supply as water. One side economy, this is a cash crop. Our GDP, some part comes from this through exports. On other side, we are actually good. Clean water is not there. Clean water to look it may be, but it's not clean. It's typically it is not clean. It cannot be. Okay. So two sides. So we have to spend on health. We earn here, we spend on health. Okay. I remember the Dalai Lama's statement. Why you people are running around and do this one, you earn money, lot, and old age you go on with it to hospitals. That's what we are doing at a global level, of course. We need all these things. I need to drink tea. At 11 o'clock, I need a tea. But this is what we do. For that, we have to do all these kind of things. We need to have money. The GDP has to go up. So, always there is a conflict. What we need and what actually we are supposed to be needing. And there is a conflict. Next one, please. And this is one another, because these are all our own examples. This is, third locally, we call it third. It's not much here, but if you go to Tamil Nadu, the eastern part of Kerala, Palkar, in Karnataka, it is there. That book, marvelous plan book in the middle. I was just going through. He has mentioned there. He is a British. We mentioned 801 uses of this. Just mentioned. When I met him, I asked him, where from you got this data? He said, I got it from Tamil literature. I am from Tamil Nadu, so I felt ashamed that I didn't know about it. Then I saw that in Sri Lanka, in Tamil, they have written almost those 801 uses. Okay, now its original is missing. Only English translation is available. Then another guy who was born and from literature he has taken sources. It is almost 700 pages book in Tamil. He put more than 1,000 uses. One tree. But unfortunately, now what is happening? It is being cut and put as a fuel wood for bricklayers. Because Tamil Nadu government has banned extracting toddy. One small action, how it leads to the depletion. There are 3-4 districts, the whole economy was depending on this particular plant. This part of the information. Of course, the jewelry of this is about 600 rupees a kilo. And so they are also adulterating with normal jewelry and selling. That's a different story. Next one, please. So I will take 5 minutes. Okay. So as we degrade, we know we are underwent COVID. All of us are survivors here. We are very lucky. Many are not lucky with that. And they said this is because we are degrading. We are cutting the forest and the forest animals. We are shaking the tree so that the virus is coming down and it's spreading to the other animals and which is also affecting us. Okay, you see that how the ecology, cutting down the tree, degradation of the forest will indirectly affect us. But still we are not learning the lessons. Next one, please. Of course, this is a migration, monarch butterfly. Canada, it starts some, this one groups. They almost travel, migrate up to Mexico, then go back. In this cycle, the same individual which started will not reach back. In between, they produce 7 generations. My great-great-great-grandmother started migrating. My great-grandson will be reaching there. You understand? It's a path. This path is defined by the field plants, which are there in between. Where they are available, that is the root. They are very important for their growth, their metamorphosis, the larvae to become the mature butterfly. Now, there are also agriculture, the cutting of industrialization. Then what will happen to this? The cycle, which has been there for so many thousands of years. Next one, please. And worst thing is, lot of weeds are spreading. Some of them you may be knowing since lack of time. Due to lack of time, I will not explain. The first one left at the top, it is known as Congress grass here. But this one is what is in Marathi they call it as Ranma, which forest pillar. Okay, because wherever some open areas you create, it will go and establish. then it will not allow any other plant to establish its seedling. So the forest is gone. So these are the real threat now. And so even in under the water, there are a lot of invasive species which are spreading. Next one, please. I'll go a little faster now. Life below water, of course, the corals and other things we are addressing from here. Next one, please. And this is another, of course, they also told that I am there. Most of the proposals which are coming, irrespective, whether they are geologists or oceanographers or microbiologists or botanists or zoologists, most of them are on microplastic. It is Atlantic now. We are not doing anything to control that, but know what this. Of course, it is good. It's a research opportunities, but it's very bad for the people. And you can just an indicative photograph how much it is coming. Research paper after research paper is showing where it is reaching. That is very bad. So we have to take care of our environment. Next one, please. And this is from Kerala. Of course, this slide 2 months back, I had to give one lecture in Kerala, so I thought this will be relevant. This one looks nice, the pink in this one. So too much area, it's introduced almost related to water lily. And it has occupied. People are very happy. Rivers and nalas are looking very pink and all, but it is so dangerous. Nothing can survive. Slowly, there is a lot of the debris will be going down and oxygen will be depleted. And this other one is like Ramanada Lake and all. If you go, you have a lot of hydrogen. Okay, both of them are you cannot canoes cannot go freely. That is one. What life underwater is affected. These are some examples. That means from every angle we are putting time bomb for ourselves. Okay, and who to blame? Next one, please. Responsible consumption and production. Of course, I did explain somewhere in the slide. 1 out of every 12 people is undergoing hunger in the world. You look at this, how much we are wasting. 19% of the food we are wasting, either in restaurants or households or whatever it is. That means not only it can feed them, it will be access, even without any additional resources. We have to be careful about what we are doing. Next one, please. And I told about the swindling of the countries during colonization. India was swindled the maximum that grew 32%, 33% to small one waters. They are responsible for that. And you look at this is a photo in 1940s when they left us in utter famine. This continued almost up to 60s, and I was born in 1960. I have seen even till I was in school, poverty, hunger around our areas. It's real. It was real. So people have gone for the advanced agricultural methods. Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, the father of the Green Revolution of our country, he has brought a lot of things. But that also includes, next one please, the modern agricultural practices, then pesticides, the improved varieties, hybrids, and other things. And you look at that, this was conflicting with our cultural ecology. And of course, that is, I don't know how many youngsters know about plowing in this fashion. I am from a farming family. I have done that. I have been there and have done that. Then, even when I was young, already tractors have come. That means many people have lost their livelihood. Okay, here you have to put petrol. Now imagine petrol prices going up, diesel prices going up. Without a diesel, it cannot run. Whereas those require you look at the background, green grass, they can go graze and they can work further. Not that we should not become modern. We should also be self-reliant. This is very important. And this, whether tractors can give outcome, you must have seen that and laugh to yourself. Why did I put this? This question is not by me. There was one in 1960s, one agriculture minister in Tamil Nadu. All the Babus went there and proposed we have to go for modern agriculture. What is that modern agriculture? We have to go for tractors, farming. He asked in pure Tamil, tractor will give cow dung. This is uneducated. This guy is asking like this. What does it mean? The village economy is through that cow dung. It was fertilized. It was fuel. Even when people die, finally when they burn, only few would this one. Mostly it is because it gives high heat. You understood? No? So the whole economy it was revolving around that at that particular time. So you ask this question, whether tractors, these people thought they to other the uneducated people come and sit as ministers. But now we realize that. Now because of this Iran war and the Ukraine war, fertilizers are not coming. We have to pay a high price. First of all, it is not coming. Same diesel. The whole agriculture sector is in problem. Because we changed too rapidly. Of course, we became self-reliant in that sense. Everyone is getting food. Hunger has gone down, though the NGOs, this one says differently. Okay. So there is always a trade-off between the reality and this one. Next one, please. Of course, this all the plans, you know. Not that only we have to rely on only our plans. Next one. Yes, stop it. These are all tropical American plants. Of course, colonization has also brought all these things here. Now imagine, oh my God, potato, tomato, chilies. Without this, can we cook these days? No, especially youngsters, without potato, they cannot survive. Right? But what were they eating 500 years ago? Next question. Okay, let it be. This is what you are, for you to just think of. Next one, please. We'll go a little further. And we can use modern technology, science, and we can go for good agriculture. We have to go for genetic engineering and all. But the problem is the technology is in wrong hands. Either it is in the developed countries who are refusing to give, or it is with the multinational companies. If at all you get time and opportunity, watch this documentary, Seed War, which says that how they have taken our seeds and modifying it, putting Terminator gene into it, and you cannot use your seed again on your own. You have to pay every time. We have to be very wary about this. This is where the geopolitics come. Next one, please. Of course, finally, climate action. Everything is related to that. We thought, you see, in 1990s, we were touching 350 ppm, and we thought, okay, we will not cross 400 ppm, and we crossed it already. Now, May 30th, 2026, 432 ppm, and of course, now more and more El Ninos, of course. The experts are here to explain that. But look at this, because Dr. Tamban Malan sir was also explaining, Arctic has got 4 times more temperature raise. Some places 6 or 7 times more and all. This is very important. Next one, please. Next slide. You see, global temperature reached 1.55 degrees centigrade above the industry, pre-industry level. This sounds very 1.55. What is that? So great. No, this is average. Averages are deceptive. We have to look at the extremes. The extremes are happening. Some places even it is becoming cooler. Most of the places it is becoming hotter. It may be 7 degrees more, 8 degrees more. That is where any life, it has got a very vulnerable phase. Even 3 degrees increase will actually make that species to collapse. So don't go by these averages. Though they say that average 2 degrees centigrade, we should not cross, we should look at it. Already in localized places, we have crossed several degrees more, which is very, very dangerous. We have to think about it. Next one, please. And because of this, locusts are migrating towards north. And interestingly, northern latitude, because of this climate change, they will be producing more. Because good warm weather will be coming from cold weather. They will produce, we will undergo drought and other things, are the floods, the 2 extremes. Next one, please. And climate change and carbon sink. Of course, one of the reason is carbon emission because of the temperature is increasing. And this temperature, what is the way? Now we are looking at technological solutions. Whereas there were trees to observe, there are phytoplankton to observe, trees we are cutting. That means we are more and more releasing and more and more cutting. That means it will be increasing more and more. Next one, please. So there are 169 specific targets. It says so far only 35% of targets are on track. Remaining are not on track. We may not be able to achieve. Next one, please. And who will make it sustainable? Is it the union, which is not having teeth? And all the 193 UN members, this one, they are competing with each other. That's why geopolitics is very important. Now the Iran war, which is going, is a pure example for that. Ukraine war is another example. So we are in that situation. Don't expect, countries to act very nicely because everyone has to cooperate. The 17th one is partnerships for the boards. Aman sir was telling about that is where you cooperate because there are only very few people we know that the pie belongs to only 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, not more. When more and more people come, then the geopolitical game starts. Okay, we have to be aware of that. And people, we, at least those kind of not throwing the bottles, not throwing the garbage, at least protecting some trees and the plantation or whatever it is today. So right? We have those kind of things we have to do. And it is the only planet so far to live on. Elon Musk may promise a lot of things. If you have money, please do go there. It is a choice between where you want to die. You want to die on Earth or you want to die in somewhere else. That's all. That is the only choice. You do that. But the question we ask is, as citizens, we also have the responsibility and we should think. That's all. Not that everyone will be able to do everything. At least each one of us will be able to do something. That is what is the message. And I once again thank you, the director and the scientists for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
So we need to thank Professor Radhan for a wonderful talk with so many stories that he has in his drawers that he has brought out today. Time is short for us because he has so much of knowledge that he would like to share with us. And he has shared a lot of things today. So many thanks for bringing out so many things. It is an eye opener for many youngsters sitting out here and to us as well. I'll request Dr. Thamban to please come on the dais and honor our guest. First with a shot. And then with a species that we need to protect.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
So we'll take a pause here because it has been a pretty long morning. So we need to break for tea and then we come back here by say about 12. The tea is arranged in the polar power. So we'll take a break. And Professor Pant is there online, so we'll request him for a pause. We have informed him. So thank you all and come back because we have a very interesting talk by Professor NC Pant. And I hope to see you in about 20-25 minutes here in this auditorium again. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Pant is here. Yes, sir. Sorry to keep you waiting. And we'll join shortly back in 20 minutes. Thank you. We are not able to hear your audio. Your mic is loud. We are not able to hear. I can't hear you.
Just check it if it's Yeah.
Your mic has to be switched on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, fantastic, sir. Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting and give us a small break. Because
Sure.
it's a long morning. Thank you so much. And you also take a break.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, sir.
Is done, brother.
Yes.
Yeah, penguin is not direct. It is turning northeast.
Can you
Between southwest.
South,
Penguin. The penguin on your board.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can. So
Okay.
just give me 5 minutes to introduce you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for coming back after rather long hot tea break. So and thank you, Professor Pant, for being patient and waiting for us. So it's an honor to have Professor N.C. Pant today and to give another talk on this very special day of World Environment Day. So I have the honor of introducing very briefly Professor N.C. Pant, Naresh Chandra Pant, who is a distinguished Indian geologist, a pioneer in Indian Antarctic Research Program. He superannuated as a senior professor from the Department of Geology, University of Delhi, where he also did his bachelor's, master's, MPhil, and PhD from. And then he served the Geological Survey of India and then IIT Kharagpur. And and thereafter, of course, he joined the Department of Geology, Delhi University. Since 2023, he has been the Vice President of the Learning in Geography Humanities, the Lights in Geo. Professor Pant's academic journey, as I said, was part and parcel of the University of Delhi. He received an award of excellence for his doctoral research on Antarctica, which is one of the first PhDs on Antarctica from any Indian. He has been central to Indian Antarctic research since 1985, serves as the Chief Officer of Geosciences for Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research, as a Deputy Chief Officer, and also was part of the INSA Committee on Scientific Committee on Antarctic Research. A lot of publications, a lot of rewards, which include the National Medal Award and Antarctic Silver Jubilee Medal, and so on and so forth. Today's talk by Professor Pant is very interesting. It is entitled India, a Case of unique vulnerabilities and the need for a revised geoscientific sustainable development perspective. So the floor is yours, Professor Pant. I hand over to you now.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you. Actually, I would first like to thank both Dr. Thamban and Dr. Rahul, because this is something which is very personal with me. I keep on talking about this to students, to schools, etc. And what I'm going to talk will be a relatively short talk, I believe, but it is also kind of related to what the chief guest had already discussed, but in a totally different context. It is also a kind of relearning in some sense, for me at least. So let us hope that this very poorly looking topic, because if I was sitting in the audience, I also would have found the topic not to be very interesting, ultimately turns out to be, more interesting than what it appears to be. So I'll share my screen and the presentation. So is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
And is the slide changing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. As I said, even I find the title not to be very interesting. But there are one or two elements in this title which which will need introduction and probably attention, special attention. India represents one of those. Vulnerability is the other word which requires strong attention, and that is what I will be talking about. But before I start, I will like to show you some cartoons from Croden Sachs, who's a contemporary cartoonist, American cartoonist. So the title which I'm saying is this: the most intelligent species. Whether we are really the most intelligent species or not. And if you look at a figure just below that, there it is shown an evolution from an four-legged kind of ape to Homo erectus here. It took around 5 million years to achieve this, the first to fourth one. And it took maybe less than 100 years again to go back to the former position with our technology. So that's a beautiful cartoon actually. And we look at the other one where Sachs talked about that, eh, jokingly, that about 77,000 years ago, the human lineage split into two branches. One, of course, is the intelligent one, and the other was dumb one. Whether that is true or not is something which we need to evaluate. We will, to some extent. And as we look at our future, the again the statement from the same cartoonist that of course I have a life, but whether it is or but not worth living. So collage of these things is something which I want to interview in the way the humans grew over the over last few thousand years. And the time I take here is from the last ice age, let us say from around last 12,000 years. You see that around 12,000 years ago, we were probably 500,000. The numbers may be wrong. Even by 10 times, if it is wrong, it doesn't matter. But around 500,000. And we had to, in this graph, one has to use log scale because a normal arithmetic scale will be impossible to show that we have grown to 8 billion plus. And in that also, if you look at the growth here, it is really steep. So there is something which struck me. I'm not a paleontologist or an anthropologist, but it struck me that is there any major animal which has shown this kind of population explosion? Remember, 500,000 to 8 billion plus. If I take the case of one one successful conservation in India, that of Bengal tiger, whose numbers right now are probably between 3,100 to 4,000, something in between that. Then it was a larger number if there are estimates which can be believed, but definitely not more than 1 lakh. There were always something around that. So if you look at any measurement, there is no measurement which can match this kind of growth. Not only that, human beings are different. How they are different? If we again take the case of Bengal tiger, it has a secluded corner or a house. The female of the Bengal tiger, when giving birth, that is a very secluded, secret, normally a rock, grass, etc. And that also is abundant very quickly. But we don't do that. We actually do that by changing our habitat. The room in which I am sitting in is created by us. The hall in which, the Prithvi hall in which you are sitting in, is created by us. We have altered our habitat permanently. Now combine in a explosive population growth with the kind of ecological footprint which we leave, that makes us what is called as hyperkeystone species, which actually changes pervasively the ecosystem. In that sense, if you look at our growth and our effect on what our surrounding, it is actually a deadly combination. When this changes occurred not as a, if you look at the graph again, not in terms of the growth graph here, but they occurred in some steps which were very, very remarkable. For example, around 3,000 or maybe little more, the agriculture. Archaeologists consider that that was one point which changed the surface of the earth, the ecology, and the entire the external surface in a totally different way. But even much bigger change occurred during industrialization. That changed us in a very, very significant way. You may ask, of course, that why I am talking about these things. I promise that we will relate it to what we are talking about. But one thing is certain, and please don't forget that 500,000 to 8 billion in 12,000 years is something which is catastrophic in some ways. So let us see whether we are very intelligent species or stupid species in some sense. It is a very complicated figure, and I'm not talking too much about that, other than to point out a small rectangle on the top right hand side here. What it shows is that in context of vulnerability, there is a linkage between a small unit and world. So our house, our workplace, to the region in which we are there, to the world, there is a linkage. The social scientists, etc., they show it in a different way. Now, if the numbers are larger in certain heterogeneous way, the effect or the vulnerability will also be large. This is the point which we will examine in little greater details progress. But we will take a pause here, because it is not that we are very intelligent or we understand this very well. No, the global context took note of this. There was as earlier also was pointed out, in 2015, a 15-year program as part of the Millennium Project led to trying to achieve equitable growth all over globe. In some sense, I will criticize this later on, but it was a very noble idea. The idea was to eradicate global poverty and to sort of limit the unsustainable consumptions and to somehow shape the sustained and inclusive economic growth, again, towards equitable development, and to weave all this in social development as well as environmental protection. So it was a really a big thing. But let us look this in context of India. As I said, this is what one of our focuses. So when we look at India, this is a very interesting diagram, and I learned about this very late, actually in 2015 only, when I visited China. You look at the right hand side diagram and you see this is the population share for we talk about, and you look at the area. So 17.8% land area of 2.4%. That puts India in a very unique position. No other country is like that. Even when China had higher population than us, it had nearly 3 times the area. So there, let us understand that our country has some unique feature. They require a different kind of attention to manage. Now, it is not only that this statistics is good enough, or is good enough to understand, or is uniform to understand. The geography and geomorphology are two factors which impact us. For example, when we look at this diagram and you look at the purple color, I always get confused, purple or violet. So purple, so let me call it purple color. I hope you can see that. That represents a small area of India where 40% of us live. I'm not very far from here at the moment. And this is an area which also is susceptible to certain geomorphological challenges. In which way? The north of this is the area which is much higher. The geomorphology of India can be defined in simple terms as having very high heights or peaks and a long coastline. So therefore a significant altitude difference. So if you have a transformation of kinetic energy from a high point to a very low point, something like where we are 40% of us are living, it is going to impact or accelerate that kinetic energy, which can lead to, in a densely populated area, a disaster. So therefore, there are geographic, in terms of geomorphologic, this is what one example which shows. There are many other examples. And in terms of geography, situation in kind of latitudinal positions where things happen in an high enhanced way. For example, heat waves in climate change impact our geographic position very differently and much more significantly than those which are there in higher latitudes. So there are lot of such issues which are unique to India. When you combine again, I say the 17% of population in 2.4% of land area, and then within this heterogeneities, our vulnerability status or our vulnerability totally changes. It is not akin to, let us say, UK or any other terrains or many other terrains rather. Now, in this context, if we are trying to use a sustainable development framework, which is one shoe fit all for global context, it will probably not be very relevant or will be working effectively for us. I'll show you how the data to support this. But intuitively, we can feel that it is not going to happen because the issues which we will face with this kind of geography and geomorphology, like floods as well as droughts, to exemplify, they will be very, very different from what others will face because of, let us say, a relatively uh, uh, gentler geomorphology. So, therefore, there are many such things, and these are only some examples. Now, it also leads to a very different, because the climate for us, the climate change resilience is very important. And if we look at this figure where you see the green areas represents a higher climate resilience development, because we have a, a window which we have not crossed, we have actually crossed. So we are in this scale also in terms of climate resilience also, we are in a problem area. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, all things are getting added up. Now let us see how we sort of kind of summarize the our vulnerabilities, which are very different from other nations. We see that 80% of our population lives where hydrometeorological vulnerabilities exist. They are in danger. It is not only that the high populous area which I showed is danger, is problematic, but when we look at the southern zone of India, that is also affected because of the geographic position to extreme climate events, and we are actually seeing many such examples happening in last few years. So everywhere there are problems. When we look at nearly half of our area is vulnerable to extreme cyclone events, we have managed to offset that in terms of the saving of lives, but the property and the economic losses are still there, and they are and we are actually much more vulnerable. So therefore, when we look at 5 out of 6 zones in India, south, north, northeast, west, and central, we have a very low adaptive capacity to these problems. And this is only a summary, remember, this is not really detailed analysis of that. Now, when we look at these kind of situations, we see that the vulnerability which India possesses because of a multitude of factors, which represents lot of people living in a small terrain and heterogeneous distribution, as well as geography and geomorphology, we probably represents the most vulnerable nation, the most vulnerable major nation, if I can put it, on globe. And therefore, our solutions cannot be what is one. What was the sort of those report card? Our report card was, it actually the idea that we will do sustainable development through localize and scale. the sense that it involved the smallest unit, administrative unit, for implementing what were considered as the aims to reduce inequality and to make India more resilient in economic, every other developed places. So what the idea, if you look at on the left hand side of this, that the lowest unit involved were gram panchayats, followed by districts, followed by states. So the beautiful inputs were from, and they funneled unit, and they were 79 SDGs. So see, we did very well. As we examples of that, we have done well. When we look at the, again, we have that we have actually very well. Have we become less vulnerable? If you look at Swachh Bharat Mission, which is actually one of the a very good thing, it has also given us the performance has been very good. Again, it is towards a social equality. So we have, when we look at the various agendas, we have done great progress, whether it is in terms of no poverty, in terms of quality education, in terms of clean energy. The energy transition especially has been very, very good. There are many schemes which have done very well. This includes the Surya Ghar Bijli Pariyojana of PM, and the green hydrogen missions, etc. So we are actually doing very well. When we are it's a very comprehensive thing. When we are looking at transition to green energy and the need for critical mineral, so quite some time back there was a big push to counter our sleeping period earlier, and we are we are actually pushing towards that. It is naturally going to take longer time because the gestation period for this is actually longer. So we are doing that. In terms of climate resilience also, we made a national framework which involved many of the ministries, which included social ministries, included the environment and forest, etc., etc. And we are, as I said, we are outpacing ourselves in trying to perform well. And as we perform, for example, when we look at the program of, in context of urbanization in terms of cities, so there were about 50 cities taken up, and there are actually progress reported in terms of the goals which were taken. We will look at that critically later. Let us praise ourselves first. So when we look at this is 2024 data which was available in DTI portal. When we look at this, so when you look at the green work, which is actually performer, so that tells us that front runners, we are front runners in the area where green is there. On the left hand side, the bars show different SDGs, SDG 1 to 16 here, and you see the progress, and many of these progress we are in the green field in this area. So we are doing very well. And if we look at a decade's performance, which is about right for 2015 onward, in terms of that, if we look at that, the score here 57 is a performance case, and we have moved from 57 to 71. So we have actually moved from, for a very, very large population, through an integrated from smallest scale to the big scale very well. Our target agenda, therefore, is well and good. But tell me, have our cities become better? Is they are cleaner? Whether the availability of good potable water is there? Why, if it is there, why every one of us requires an RO in our homes. So the excellent progress SDGs, the excellent progress, which is commendable. Why? Why is that despite following the right path, we are not able to actually see that translated. It is translated in terms of data, which is correct data. I'm not doubting that. But why it is not actually, it has not created a socially, economically equitable society. Why, why it is not? In fact, we are in some of the cases. By 2019, I remember, was a problem, water problem, where it was going towards zero. That stage may be there for some other cities also, including Delhi. So there is something which we need to critically look at, to examine, to understand that our inequality, our problem, our issue, why it is not getting resolved. So when we try to look at that, I am referring to a paper published by two Chinese, actually from Wuhan in November 24. They analyzed actually the SDGs and implementation in a case of around more than 110 countries, 110 or 15 countries, and they took 20 to 30, in some cases around 25 to 30 parameters to look at, to see whether one shoe fit all SDG framework is working or is it uniformly applicable. And they found major issues with that. One issue which they found, there are four major which I have listed, and I'm not reading them directly, but I'm just trying to tell you that there were some structural issues with the SDGs. Let me quote one. I mean, without even referring to this study, is that if we are looking at a populous country like India, where we are saying climate resilience, probably it is SDG 13, and food for all, which is possible 2. So if we try to balance that 2, that is, if we try to generate, we know we have hungry people. So if we try to generate more food, we will be doing what we're doing. We have to extract more water. So the 6 or 7, which is conserving water, etc., that will be affected. And when we actually produce more food, we will be affecting carbon cycle in a different way, because we will be using more land from where probably forestation will go away. So if we are trying to, so there is a structural flaw in some of those things, and it is not only for us, it is for many countries which are under poverty, which have significant poverty. India's case is much better, but so there were inherent issues. This is just one example, but when this is really studied scientifically, there is a lot of data which is generated. Then the indices which will probably be useful is called as HPI, or Happy Planet Index. And Happy Planet Index is what will encompass how equitable we have become, how emotionally, socially better we have become. And there are parameters for that in this study which were. But the Human Development Index and GDP are closely related. So they come together. So low GDP countries have low Development Index. They were clustered with existing data. That also tells us that the premise of the vision of SDG was excellent, but the premise was little bit romantic, and it needs to be seen in the lens of each country's vulnerability. If we are going to look at sustainable development parameter or framework for a nation using the vehicle of the sustainable development goals, then we will need to look at redefine the sustainable development goals in context of each country or each nation. In fact, even within India, as I pointed out, the inequalities in geography and geomorphology, those inequalities will also have to be taken into account in working out how this sustainable development can be effective. For example, if we are looking at engineering solutions in Himalaya and engineering solution in peninsular India, they are different. We in the uh, characters, the rock strength, etc., differently in two domains because the material is different and it's much more easily problem created in Himalayas compared to what is there in the shield area. So therefore, we input different dimensions. We cannot have one framework for different areas which have different physical properties. Therefore, the reassessment of SDG in our vulnerability context is something which is very necessary. Second is that how do we limit our ecological footprint? That needs to be seen in our context because our requirements will be different. And in this process, we need to incorporate our traditional wisdom. It need not necessarily be a framework available which need to be incorporated. No, our solutions, our engineering aspects need to be different because our say for example CO2 emission will need to be managed in our own way, and this reassessment of our SDGs, the reframing of our SDGs, as well as looking at this from the perspective of solutions which are indigenous, that is what is essential if at all we want to pursue in the direction of attainable sustainable development goals. And this will have to be in our vulnerability taken into account. Now, this also, the paper also pointed out that in this context, the governance issues become very important. Fortunately, have a sensitive and uh, unlike America, I'll say, have a very robust governance setup. But this governance setup need to incorporate these specific inputs from specialists to process and to design policies. So this is something which is very important because this is what can be is part of what is called as public value theory, and it needs to be formulated for our own specific vulnerabilities. So I'm coming towards end. As I said, I am not going to take a long talk. So this is something, it's not that we have not done this. And I recall, because of my association with GSI and other association, that in 19, you see the SDGs were adopted in 2015 as part of the Millennium Project. In 1996 in GSI, Shri K. Krishnamurthy, who is no more, he was a deputy director general at that time in GSI. He envisaged something called as DOVE. DOVE was Development of Village Economy, DOV, DOVE. And he, in entire Northeast, entire all these states of the Northeast, the geological mapping was made considering the local sources, the uh, local requirements and local traditions, and a geological map on degree scale as well as 1:50,000 scale for the entire Northeast region. And there were one district outside also in Bid in Maharashtra. Now those maps were made to facilitate, they were on district scale. the facilitation was for make the logic was that district is the administrative unit, and those district maps are available, and they outline the resources and use in local domains with in a way which leads to a sustainable. So this was nearly 10 years before the SDGs were adopted. Unfortunately, that was not taken up. So what is our problem is that we are not, there are intelligence, there are vision which is available, but the lateral transformation of that mission, that vision is relatively limited. In that sense is that if we want to be Vishwa Guru, we have to recognize our gurus and our visionaries for our India specific sustainability issues. And if we are able to do that, if we are able to look at our vulnerabilities, if we are able to solve the problem for those and look at our sustainability development goals, probably we will have a new framework which will be intrinsic, which will be indigenous, and which will be much more successful than the numbers which we have at the moment. So I say that self-belief, confidence, and India-centric approach for sustainable development is what is needed if we aspire to climb peaks like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pansa, for a wonderful talk, indicating that we all should be very concentrated on happiness as well. The problems and issues of the country are multitude, depending on physiography as well, as you rightly pointed out. And SDG goals, one shoe fit all. It's very true, doesn't fit for India holistically. And it's important that we look at the world on a day when we're celebrating the World Environment Day. Very holistically, personally, I feel, especially when we look at the groundwater usage in the country and the depletion and how the problems associated with it are happening now. So there are many, many areas that we need to talk about, but a wonderful talk, and we had two beautiful talks which probably I'll carry home tonight. And thank you so much for delivering and agreeing to deliver this talk with a very short notice and patiently listening to all of us since morning and then delivering a talk after a break for tea. So with these words, I need to thank you and I request the audience to give a big round of applause once again.
Yes, I would have loved to respond to questions or inquiries. Unfortunately, being far away, that is difficult, even if they.
So I think I'll leave the questions for now because the reason it's about 1 in the day and we are running late. So I'll call it a day and thank you and thank the audience here as well. So thank you, Prof. Pant, for joining us online. Actually, we didn't have our sister. Thank you so much. The audience sitting here, thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming. It is my proud privilege to thank Chief Guest and Prof. Pant for agreeing to come.